Am I the a-hole for ruining my brother's relationship because I wanted his girlfriend to be more involved with our family? I, 28 female, always had a great relationship with my brother, 38 male, and the rest of my family. When my son, now 5, was born, they supported me through a lot, especially since my baby's father abandoned us. The problem started when he met his girlfriend, 30s, in university. At the start, I was truly happy for him, especially since he talked to me about wanting to ask her out ever since he heard of her from her classmates. What I didn't like is that she didn't care too much to keep contact with us, even after being together for well over a year. She was always too busy to meet our family. He told me she was an amazing cook, was kind, brilliant, etc., and he wanted to marry her and travel with her back to her country once she finished her PhD. He'd always talk to us about how lucky he was to be dating her, she's a judge, and how our government was financing her. I'll admit, knowing a childless woman wasn't working and was paid more money than me, on top of having her rent and other things covered, stung a little bit, but it had nothing to do with my dislike for her. I wanted her to be more involved in our family. There was always an excuse as to why she couldn't meet us for dinners, etc. She'd be studying, helping someone from abroad, which I don't really believe. What could she be doing for anyone being miles away? And on the rare occasion she was free, she was either traveling to see her family, hosting friends, or wanted to be alone. I didn't buy that she didn't have any time for us because she doesn't work and was always at home. But she stopped accepting my visits and refused anything to do with my son as well, which slowly distanced my brother. She wouldn't even babysit when my parents were out of town, and I needed her to watch him so I could work. Personally, I don't think she's as kind as my brother thought. My parents were on my side. Brother wanted to be neutral, but asked us to not stress her out even more. A few days ago, me and my parents went to her house to talk things out with them both. We were upset, but tried our best to explain why her distance and refusal to help was unacceptable, since she doesn't work and has free time. I told her I wish she'd be more caring, and she got increasingly angrier, but said nothing. Then she turned to my brother and asked him if he agreed, but he said he didn't want to take sides. She said this was another example of why she felt so resistant to the idea of getting into a relationship, that she couldn't take it anymore and felt better being alone, and then broke up with him. I was shocked. None of us expected this, and my brother immediately tried to backtrack. She told all of us to leave her house immediately and to not go back. Now I'm feeling guilty and my brother won't speak to us because I ruined his relationship, and she's irreducible. She isn't bothering to listen to anyone in our family, and I'm afraid there's no way to fix this. Am I the a-hole, or did she overreact? Edit. When I said I wanted her to be more involved and caring, I meant I wanted her to care enough to attend at least a few of the parties / dinners / other things we invited her to, because we wanted to get to know her and develop a relationship with her. Especially since she had told my brother she had no plans of returning to / visiting the US once she got the degree, since she felt uncomfortable here. She was a possible future sister-in-law, and we'd lose her and our brother if they moved together, and she had no relationship with us to ever want to visit. I didn't want nor expected babysitting, unless I had no one else to ask in an emergency like the one I mentioned. Then I asked her because I thought that, since she was on a paid leave from work, she could be flexible. But from what I read from all the responses, some of who didn't need to be so mean by the way, it seems that I was wrong to assume that. Also, by not wanting anything to do with my son, I also meant that she grey-rocked me when I tried to speak about him or show photos. Edit 2. Okay, I get it, people. I'm the a-hole. You can stop with the insults. I'll wait and see if my brother will ever talk to me again and apologize to him. Some of you wanted to know where she's from. I'm not going to name the country for the sake of not revealing too much info and keeping privacy, but it's somewhere in the South. She's Latina. Top comments. You're the a-hole. Not her responsibility to watch your children or be there for your whims / amusement. And be honest with yourself. The fact that she is childless and does have free time bothers you. You are not entitled to her time. Keep repeating that to yourself until it gets through to you. Also wanted to add that she does work if she's a judge. She's doing a PhD as well, which is a full-time job. Yeah, but is it being a mother? I don't think so. Yeah, she's a PhD student and a judge, but she doesn't have kids. How can she be busy? My God. The combination of entitlement and profound ignorance is quite staggering. Who also helps folks internationally? How could a judge getting her PhD in another country possibly be able to help anyone when they're miles away? What utter nonsense. Wait till OP learns about the internet. So the brother's girlfriend is going to a university to gain her PhD and become a judge. That sounds like a full-time job to me. And it does sound very much like OP is jealous of the amount of free time the girlfriend has, to the point where she feels entitled to it. The brother's girlfriend, ex-girlfriend, does not owe you anything. Not her time, not free babysitting, and not clearing her evenings to go on dinner dates with you and your family. OP is the a-hole for bombarding the ex-girlfriend with demands until she no longer felt comfortable around the family. But I also think OP's brother is the a-hole for not standing up for his girlfriend against his parents and sister. Am I the a-hole for telling my little brother what he said to our grandma was hurtful and it doesn't matter if it's true or not? I, 18 male, have a little brother, 7 male. Our dad died 5 years ago. Mom remarried a year later. Mom's husband adopted my brother, and my brother calls him dad and loves him as his only dad. This is something everyone around us knows, and while it is somewhat hard for my paternal relatives, and even me, for him to have no interest in dad, we have accepted he was so little that dad was just a person he's heard about, and he doesn't have any emotional attachment toward him. But a couple of weeks ago, my grandparents stopped by my mom's house. I moved out, and I stopped by quickly to see them. Grandpa was out of the room for something, and Grandma was talking to my brother about how big he was getting. My brother was telling her all about Mom's husband and how he was doing certain things. He mentioned how they were doing a special father-son trip for Father's Day, and how I said no to going, and how strange he found it because Dad wants to be with his boys, but OP doesn't let him be his dad. Then he blurts out of nowhere that he's glad Dad died because it meant he got his dad, and he liked that he had him instead of my dad. Grandma froze, and he kept talking like he'd said nothing wrong. She ended up bursting into tears and leaving. Mom asked what had happened, heard what my brother had said, and was like, "Oh, she's just being too sensitive." I told Mom he shouldn't be saying stuff like that. She said it's true, and how she's glad he's dead too. I told her they might not have been happily married near the end. I think trying for a second child for years strained their marriage a lot, and when my brother did arrive and cried all the time, that it left them in an even worse place. But he was still the reason she had us, and even if my brother never considers him a dad, he will always be my dad, and her husband did not change that. She told me it could have if I'd accepted him. My mom made it very clear that she would not correct him for saying that, so when he wanted to hang out with me Saturday, I decided to bring it up to him. He actually started the conversation saying Grandma and I had acted weird when she visited. I told him that was because what he said was really hurtful, and even if it is how he feels, saying that when he was her son and my dad was not a very kind thing to do. He asked me if I was mad at him, and I told him I had to force myself not to be. But he had to understand that while he feels how he does, our grandparents and I love Dad, and that Mom's husband did not take his place, and we would never be glad he's gone. He got upset and told me he wanted to go home, so I brought him home. Mom and her husband were pissed with a capital P and said that it was not my place and I was putting too much on his shoulders. Am I the a-hole? Top comments. I'm not the a-hole, but it's very likely your little brother is just parenting his mom's words. Seriously, what the heck is wrong with her? I can't believe she was so cruel and said that to you. You should just move on from it though, especially since your mother is actively encouraging him to think that way. Hopefully your little brother will learn with time that even if he feels no kinship to his bio dad, he needs to understand that it's different for other people. I don't think that's fair. 7-year-olds make connections, and especially with cause and effect. All he knows is that the only reason his dad is there is because his bio dad died. Complex choices and having two truths in your head is pretty hard for a kid. No one is an a-hole here, and trying to explain this to a 7-year-old is impossible. Edit. I missed the part where she agreed. Yes, the mom is an a-hole. True, but it's going to hurt OP and the grandmother regardless. A 7-year-old might not be old enough to make the connection, but it is definitely old enough to have empathy not to say negative things about his brother's dad. It's good to teach him that he can't say that at his age. He doesn't have to make the connection yet, he just has to realize that what he said hurt his loved ones. He's plenty old enough to understand that telling someone he's glad their kid died is cruel. OP is not the a-hole, and I feel bad that they're in such a difficult predicament. On the one hand, OP's brother seemed not to understand the severity of the words, and is not likely to fully grasp the concept of death and grief. However, I feel that a 7-year-old child is old enough to understand that what they said hurt someone's feelings and not to say it anymore. OP was right for having that conversation with their brother, though the lesson they're teaching may have left little effect because it seems that the mom is totally on board with smearing her ex-husband's reputation. Regardless of the mom's relationship with her late husband, I feel that she should still respect how OP and their grandmother feel, and that she should refrain from making hateful comments within earshot of an impressionable child. Am I the a-hole for telling people my brother chose a dog over me? Throwaway. My 28 female brother, 26 male, was my best friend growing up. He didn't feel the same way. I was a lot more awkward as a kid, so I often just followed his friend group around, even though many of them bullied me. He never stood up for me, but when we were alone, he went back to being fun and nice, so I always forgave him. When we were teenagers and got part-time jobs, I started buying him birthday and Christmas presents, even though he never did the same. My parents said it was because he's younger and would eventually, but to this day, I've never received a gift from him personally. Now that we're adults, I call and text him occasionally to check in, and though he's nice when he responds, he doesn't initiate. I figured that was just how he is. I always put more work in, but he's my brother and I love him. I'm graduating from graduate school soon, and I invited my whole family out to celebrate. Everyone got a plane ticket and hotel room I'm paying for, and it's been planned out for months. The other day, my brother called me to say he was picking up a new puppy the day before my graduation and that he couldn't make it. Something inside me broke a little. I asked if it really had to be that day, if he couldn't postpone it for a week or something, but he said no dice, and to cancel his reservations. I said okay and hung up. I decided I was done being in a one-way relationship with him, even though I always thought of him as my best friend. Later, I was talking to our mom, and she was saying how excited she is to see us. And I told her, "Oh, brother's not coming. He chose a dog over me." She asked what I was talking about, and I explained. She said she was disappointed, but not surprised. Word got out, and my brother called me, really hushed and sad, and said what I said wasn't cool. I said I just told the truth. He called me an a-hole, and we haven't spoken since. I said what I said in anger and bitterness, but now I'm feeling really guilty, because I've always forgiven my brother, and I've never heard him sound the way he did on the phone. Am I the a-hole? Some edits, because I guess I didn't explain some things properly. I didn't invite myself to parties or social events my brother got invited to with his friends. When I said I followed him around his friend group, I meant sit near them on the school bus or during assemblies. My brother has a social life outside of me, which I was not invited to, nor forced myself into. I did not insert myself into his friend group, just that when there were group functions, I would hover near them as opposed to being in a corner. When we were alone, we acted very friendly with each other, and we would hang out regularly, like playing video games together. He did agree to go to my graduation before I bought the hotel and plane tickets. I did not assume he would attend. Top comments. If he didn't want you telling people he backed out of your graduation festivities to get a dog, he shouldn't have backed out of your graduation festivities to get a dog. Not the a-hole, obviously. Not the a-hole. He cares more about what people think of his selfish behavior rather than his actions actually being selfish. Did he think no one would question why he wasn't there at the trip, or hoping that gave him enough time to come up with another excuse? Not the a-hole. Seems possible that OP has maybe defended him or sugarcoated it when he hasn't followed through on stuff in the past, and he wasn't expecting her to be so blunt about it now. I'd imagine that's why her family have evidently given him a hard time, because it was a shock that she's no longer trying to gloss over how he treats her. I'm sorry, OP. Figuring out a relationship is one-sided is really hard, especially when it's a sibling you wanted desperately to be close to. I hope you enjoy your graduation, and know that the people that will be there truly support you. It seems clear that OP cares for their brother. However, OP's brother has made little, if any, effort to reciprocate the level of affection and consideration that OP has put into their relationship. It sounds like from the beginning, OP's brother only gave attention to OP when he had nothing to do, and has for many years taken OP's kindness for granted. Even though OP is celebrating one of the biggest accomplishments of their life, the brother has no problem suddenly canceling on OP and choosing a pet over their sibling. I think OP had every right to be angry and tell the family about their brother's poor character. OP's brother is well aware that his behavior was unacceptable, and only spoke to OP in order to complain that they weren't keeping quiet about how he treats them. To OP, I'd say, don't make space in your life for someone who would not do the same for you, even if that person is family. Am I the a-hole for telling my brother he's wrong to hold a grudge over our parents kicking him out 8 years ago? My 20 female brother, 26 male, got kicked out by our parents at 18 because he dropped out of high school and refused to work. Our parents gave him 3 days after his birthday to leave and told him not to contact them for money or to ask them to change their minds. He didn't contact us for 4 years, which is when he had my niece, and told our parents they'd never get to meet her. He kept his word, and to this day our parents have never met their granddaughter. He had contact with me though. He'd pick me up to visit sometimes, but that stopped when I was 18 and still said I supported what my parents did. He's married now, and he does welding or something along those lines, so I think getting kicked out was the best thing that could have happened to him. To this day, he has never said a word to our parents, and has told my niece that they're dead. He refuses to attend any family gathering if they're there, and never brings his family. He makes posts online about how parents who kick their kids out at 18 are terrible, and how he'll never do the same. I had enough of him disrespecting the people who take care of him, so I went over there to visit, and lost it at him. I said he deserved to get kicked out for being a lazy, freeloading brat, and his daughter wouldn't exist if it hadn't been. I accused him of hating our parents for being right more than he loves his daughter. He told me to get out and not come back. He said that I'm just like our parents. I don't think I was wrong, but my boyfriend said that I'm rubbing salt in the wound and making things worse for no reason. Top comments. I mean, in this day and age, needing to find a place to live at 18 is unreasonable. A lot of 25-year-olds today are still living at home because the economy is horrible. You're the a-hole for telling your brother how to feel about his parents kicking him out when he was just a teen. 3 days is no time at all to find a job or anything. He could have been guided in a way that would have been more beneficial. Hell, I dropped out of my first semester of college, but my parents still let me live at home. I've been in and out of jobs since, and their support has let me be a teen/20-year-old while also saving up for when I eventually move out. I help out financially when able and when they accept it. If they kicked me out after I turned 18, I wouldn't be talking to them either. The problem is that the brother didn't want to work either. He dropped out of high school and then didn't do anything. My mom has a rule. If you want to stay in her house after high school, you either need to be in school or working. He could have gotten a job if he didn't want to go to school. Good parents try to get to the root cause of why their son is behaving like this. Kicking him out should be the last resort where everything else, including therapy, has failed. These people kicked their son out 3 days after his 18th birthday. They just didn't care. Edit. Thank you so much for the awards. I honestly didn't realize this would blow up this much. Thank you. And please, have patience with your kids as they navigate early adulthood. As a parent that has pushed their kids past points like this in their lives, I can say that 3 days is insane. And yeah, they could have worked with him to find a solution. To me, that's just lazy parenting. They are counting down to 18 so he's not legally their problem anymore. What a lot of people like to ignore is that you're not done parenting when the kid turns 18. It's a lifetime commitment. I could only imagine where my daughter would be had we not cheered her along as she struggled through her late teens and early 20s, helped her try different approaches/avenues. She's now about to graduate with a STEM degree from a fantastic school with an amazing job lined up. A few years later than originally planned, but that's okay. We all work in our own timeline. My middle child struggled too. He didn't want to work and failed out of 2 different colleges. He's loving life in the military and actually loves what he does. Now plans on getting out, coming back home to finish his degree in that field, then moving on. We couldn't be prouder. I think more parents need to realize that this pressure we put on kids to decide the rest of their lives at 17 and 18 is insane and unrealistic. I'm in my 40s and I'm on career 5 at this point. Well, we need to coach and help them into adulthood, not toss them on their butts and say good luck, then try to take credit when they turn out okay in spite of it. If OP's brother dropped out of school at 18 and was kicked out 3 days later, there was absolutely no time for the brother to get a job that would make enough money for him to be financially self-sufficient. At 18, the brother was likely very close to graduating or in their senior year of high school. The fact that he suddenly dropped out might mean that something happened, either at school or in his personal life, that caused him to drop out. Instead of pressuring the brother to get a job, Obi's parents should have talked with their son about what caused the sudden change and help him to get on the right path. At that point, he had only been out of school for 3 days, and if given the time and possible help he needed, he could have changed his mind. I think it was incredibly careless and hurtful for OP to say that getting kicked out was the best thing that ever happened to their brother. With no job and likely no money, it's possible that OP's brother may have been homeless and had to endure many hardships to get to where he is today. The brother has a right to feel hurt by his parents and does not have to maintain a relationship with them or OP. Am I the a-hole for keeping my brother's life insurance? I, 40 male, lost my brother, 42 male, Jay, in a car accident a few months ago. Growing up, he was the golden child. He got a full ride to a prestigious school while I had to pay my own way and eventually drop out. He went on to grad school, but I got married and settled down with my wife, 42 female, Brittany, early on. We've had financial struggles, which caused us to not be able to start a family. We lived paycheck to paycheck in a 1-bedroom apartment. Jay always made good money, but wasn't lucky in love. He was very picky, and while he had some longer 1 to 2 year relationships, he was looking for perfection before getting married. He finally married his wife, 40 female, Mary, in 2019. She also made good money, like Jay. She also had 2 children from a previous relationship, now 18 and 19. One is in college, and the other will be starting next year. She and Jay also had twin girls about a year ago. Mary and Jay both worked and have a nanny they share with a neighbor for their girls. When they got pregnant, she sold her house where they were living, and he sold his condo that he had been renting out, and they bought a larger family home together. All this to say, money is not a problem for them. Like I said, Jay passed away recently in a car accident, and Mary found out that I was the beneficiary of his 401k and life insurance policy through his employer. The life insurance is $150k, but the 401k is much more substantial. He set it up that way years ago before Mary was in the picture and never changed it. Mary begged me to give her a portion of the money, but I said no. She inherited his part of their house and their joint savings account, which is about $50k. She said that she paid for his funeral, and to make it work on her income alone, she will have to sell the house, give up the nanny, put the girls in daycare, and won't be able to help her older kids with college the way they planned. I told her it's not my fault. If he wanted to change the beneficiary, he should have done that. But he didn't, so now the money is mine. My wife and I plan to use the money to buy a home and finally start a family. She says her husband's money should go to his children, but she doesn't see that me using the money to have my own children is more important. Our parents think I'm an a-hole because the money should go to his kids. I offered to take $50k and put it in a trust for the girls' education, but they said Mary needs the money now. They said the life insurance would pay off their mortgage and the boys' college and put money away for the girls' future, and her income would cover the rest so they wouldn't have to move. But what about my family? Top comments. You're the a-hole. Yeah, your life sucks. But there's no world in which your brother would not have wanted to take care of his wife and their children. or exploiting a lapse of attention on his part to profit from his death. That's just gross as hell. I have to agree here. It's hard to imagine a scenario in which he would not want his own children to have the money and be cared for. He should have updated his affairs, but didn't. OP is greedy and morally wrong here, even if he is legally entitled to the money. To add, Jay passed away in an accident, something unplanned. He most likely thought he had more time to update all this. Sounds like OP is resentful that his brother got lucky and is now taking it out on his sister-in-law and his baby nieces. OP's older brother got married 3 to 4 years ago in 2019 to a woman with 2 teens and had twins about a year ago. He died unexpectedly and suddenly at 42 years of age. I think it's safe to bet that he was originally looking out for his younger brother as far as his estate planning went, and simply overlooked changing the beneficiaries when he got married. He would have been mighty busy at that point, and especially the past year or so. The absence of any information or documents suggesting that this is intentional means that it is the sort of tragically common oversight made by young, healthy people around their estate planning. Perhaps OP should honor this, and also ask his sister-in-law for some money from his estate, as he clearly cared for his younger brother. OP is definitely the a-hole here. It sounds like OP's brother was favored in childhood, which might play a role in why the OP is so bitter in this situation. Although the brother's family seemed well off, things have changed after his untimely death. His widow is now having to support all 4 children on her single income, while also dealing with the grief of losing her spouse. I'm sure that OP is well aware that their brother would have wanted his money to go to his spouse. However, OP feels as though they need to get even to make up for living a less successful life than their brother. Even if OP did decide to keep the money in order to start a family, that money will only last for so long, and eventually OP will revert back to their original income and continue to struggle financially. OP should do the honorable thing and give the money to their brother's widow, although this result seems unlikely. Thanks for watching. Let me know down below if you agree with the verdict. Also, consider checking out my other channel, Star_Vingart, where I post my artwork, and my Etsy, StarVingartCompany, where I sell my art prints and stickers. Bye.